Have you ever felt invisible to the people who should love you most? Left out of moments, conversations, and memories, as if you did not matter? I know that feeling too well. It is a quiet pain that grows inside, a question without an answer. What happens when your family closes the door on you, when you are no longer part of their world? This is my story, the story of being left out, of finding strength in silence, and of reclaiming my life in ways I never imagined. It is about hurt, hope, and the surprising power that comes from choosing yourself. Before we jump back in, tell us where you are tuning in from. And if this story touches your heart, please subscribe, because tomorrow I have saved something truly special just for you. My name is Laura Bennett. I am 61 years old. I have 2 children, 1 dog, and a small garden I care for every morning. I live alone in a quiet neighborhood, just 2 streets away from where I raised my family. My days are peaceful. I drink my tea by the window. I walk my dog, Benny, around the block. I volunteer at the local library on Thursdays. Nothing dramatic, nothing wild. Just calm, ordinary life. I have always believed in being there for my family. When my daughter Emma had her first baby, I stayed with her for 2 weeks. When my son David lost his job, I sent groceries to his door. I never asked for anything in return. That is just what mothers do, is it not? I thought we were close. We always used to talk, at least once a week. Sometimes we would laugh about old memories. Sometimes we would plan Sunday dinners. Sometimes we would just sit quietly on the phone, and that was enough. But lately, something has changed. The phone calls became shorter. The visits became fewer. There were pictures on social media I had never seen. Family photos, dinners, birthdays. I smiled at them, but inside something stung. Still, I told myself, they are busy. They have their own lives now. That is normal. But the feeling would not leave me. Like a whisper behind the curtain. Something I could not quite hear. But I knew it was there. One morning I baked cinnamon rolls, David's favorite. I called to ask if he wanted to stop by and pick some up. He answered, but his voice sounded distracted. "Oh, I think we already have plans today, Mom." "Sorry." Plans? He did not say what kind. He did not invite me. I hung up the phone and stood in the kitchen, the warm scent of cinnamon filling the air. Benny looked up at me, tail wagging, unaware of the silence that had fallen over the room. I brushed it off. One missed visit, no big deal. Maybe next week. I carried on. I went to the library. I pulled weeds in the garden. I rewatched an old film and smiled when the couple danced in the rain. Everything was fine. At least that was what I told myself. But deep down I could feel something changing. The day after I baked the cinnamon rolls, I decided to take a walk. It was a gentle morning, with soft clouds and the smell of wet grass still in the air. Benny walked beside me, his little feet making quiet sounds on the pavement. I passed the park, the one where I used to push Emma on the swings. I smiled at the memory. She always wore her yellow dress and sang songs from cartoons. Back then, she thought I could fix anything. Those days felt far away now. As I reached the end of the block, I noticed something across the street. It was my daughter's car. She was parked in front of our old family house, my house, before I downsized. I slowed down. Emma had not mentioned she would be in the area. Then I saw her. She was getting out of the car with her husband, Mark, and their 2 boys. They were carrying balloons and a gift bag. A birthday? I looked around. Whose house was this now? I did not recognize the name on the mailbox. I stood across the street, unsure of what to do. Then David arrived. He parked right behind Emma, my son. He stepped out of his car with a tray of cupcakes in his hands. His wife followed him, laughing at something he had said. Both of my children, both of their families, all together. I waited. I thought, perhaps they had forgotten to invite me. Perhaps it was a mistake. I checked my phone. No messages. Nothing. I stepped back and turned around before they could see me. Benny looked up at me with soft eyes, as if he could feel the shift in my chest. My feet began to move quickly, not quite running, but not walking either. When I reached my front porch, I sat down and placed my hand on my heart. It was not beating fast, but it felt heavy, like it was carrying something it did not understand. I stared out at the sky. I asked myself, why did they not tell me? I had always made sure they felt loved. I had been at every school performance, every graduation, every first job, every broken heart. I had stayed up all night when David had that awful flu at 13. I had held Emma's hand through childbirth. But now, I was outside the circle. I told myself not to take it personally. Maybe it was a friend's party. Maybe I was not expected to come. But in my bones, I knew. This was not just one missed event. Later that evening, I went to my computer. I opened my email, then my phone. I clicked on our family group chat. Or what I thought was the family group chat. No new messages, just old texts from weeks ago, birthday plans, photos, jokes. I stared at the last message I had sent. It was a picture of the birdhouse I had painted with the boys last summer. I had asked, "Do you think they would like to do another craft next weekend?" No one replied. That was over a month ago. My chest felt tight again. I clicked on David's name. I clicked on Emma's. I looked at their social media. That was when I saw it. They had posted pictures from today. The whole family smiling under a happy birthday, Ava sign. Ava is Emma's youngest daughter, my granddaughter, my sweet little Ava who used to call me Grandma Lou. I scrolled through the pictures. One by one, my family smiled without me. They were all tagged in the post, except me. And then I saw it. A comment from David's wife. So happy we made a new group chat for just the parents. So much easier to plan these without confusion. This turned out perfect. New group chat. 40. Just the parents. Without confusion. Without me. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I closed the screen. I walked to the window and looked out. The street was quiet. My tea had gone cold. Benny rested at my feet, unaware that the world had tilted slightly, just enough to let something slip out of place. Something feels strange. Something feels wrong. And I could feel it deep inside me. Something was changing. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. The house was silent, except for the soft ticking of the clock in the hallway. I sat up slowly in bed and looked around my room. Everything was still in its place. My books on the shelf, the framed picture of my children on the nightstand, the sweater folded neatly on the chair. But something inside me felt different. Unsettled. Unsteady. I walked to the kitchen and turned on the kettle. As I waited for it to boil, I stared at the refrigerator door. It used to be covered in drawings, notes, and magnets from places we had visited as a family. Now it held only one photo, a picture of Ava holding a sunflower. I had taken it last spring during a picnic. I remember how she laughed when the wind blew the petals into her face. I remember how she ran into my arms and said, "This is the best day ever, Grandma Lou." I had believed her. I placed the tea bag into my mug and poured the hot water slowly. My hands were steady, but my heart was not. Why had they excluded me? What had I done? I thought back to every recent conversation. Had I said something wrong? Had I been too quiet? Too present? Too honest? Had I missed a moment when I should have spoken up? I had always tried to be gentle, kind, understanding. I had always offered help, not judgment. I had always loved without asking for anything in return. So why did they leave me out? I took my tea to the window and sat down. Benny rested his head on my foot, warm and loyal as ever. The street was still quiet. The sky was turning a soft shade of gold. I thought about calling Emma. I picked up the phone. I looked at her name on the screen. Then I put it down. What would I say? Why did you not invite me to Ava's party? Why did you make a new group chat without me? The questions felt heavy. They sat on my chest like stones. I did not want to sound angry. I did not want to beg for space in their lives. But I wanted answers. I needed to understand. Instead, I opened the notebook I keep beside my chair. I started writing. Nothing special, just my thoughts. I feel invisible. I feel like I am walking through glass. I am here, but they cannot see me. Or maybe they choose not to. I closed the notebook. That afternoon, I went to the library. I thought it might help to be around other people, to focus on books and simple tasks. But even as I shelved new arrivals and smiled at the regular visitors, my mind kept drifting. At one point, I saw a mother and daughter at the reading table. The girl was coloring, and the mother was reading aloud to her, pointing to each word with care. The little girl leaned against her shoulder. Safe. Connected. I turned away before my emotions could show on my face. By the time I got home, the sky had grown darker. A soft rain began to fall. I stood on the porch and watched the drops slide down the railing. I thought about the word family. It used to mean closeness, laughter, support. It used to mean Sunday dinners, shared secrets, and phone calls just to say, "I love you." Now, it felt like a locked room, one I used to have a key to. I walked back inside, sat down on the couch, and looked again at that same picture of Ava. I tried to tell myself that it did not matter, that maybe they had simply forgotten, that maybe it was not meant to hurt me. But even when you try to be strong, confusion has a way of creeping in. It fills the spaces between your thoughts. It turns simple moments into questions. That night, I lay in bed with my eyes wide open. I kept hearing the words again. So happy we made a new group chat. So much easier. Easier without me. The thought echoed through my mind like a slow drumbeat. I felt confused, not just because of what they had done, but because I truly did not understand why. And sometimes not knowing why is the part that hurts the most. The day after I returned from the library, I received a knock on my door. It was around noon, and I had just finished folding the last of the laundry. Benny ran to the door, his tail wagging in that hopeful way he always does. I followed behind him slowly, unsure of who it could be. When I opened the door, I saw Emma standing on the porch. She was holding a small container in her hands. Her eyes looked tired, as if she had not slept well, and her smile was soft, unsure. She used to smile at me with complete joy, like a child who trusted the sun to always rise. Now her smile had edges. "Hi, Mom," she said, shifting from one foot to the other. "I brought you some soup." I blinked. I was not sick. She had not mentioned she would stop by. Still, I stepped aside and opened the door wider. "Come in." She walked inside, placing the container on the counter. She looked around the kitchen, as if trying to remember the way it used to feel when she still lived here. Then she turned to me. "It is butternut squash," she said. "Your favorite." I nodded slowly. "Thank you." There was a silence between us, not quite uncomfortable, but definitely not warm. It was the kind of silence that held words no one wanted to say. Emma leaned against the counter and looked down at her shoes. "I know we have not talked much lately," she said. "Things have just been busy." Busy. That word again. That word people use to explain everything and nothing. I wanted to ask her why she had not invited me to Ava's birthday. I wanted to ask about the group chat, but I could not find the words that did not sound like begging. I did not want to beg to be remembered. Instead, I said, "How is Ava?" Her face lit up for a moment. "She is good." She started drawing again. "She made a picture of you yesterday. She said you are wearing a purple dress with stars." I smiled. "That sounds like something I would wear." Emma laughed gently, but her eyes did not quite match the sound. "I told her we would visit soon," she added. "Maybe next weekend." I nodded. "I would like that." There was another pause. The clock ticked on the wall. Benny laid down, by Emma's feet, resting his chin on his paws. Then she said, "Mom, I know things feel strange right now, but I want you to know we love you." I felt those words sink into my chest. Not all the way, but just enough to stir something. Love should not be something you have to wonder about. It should not be something that needs proving. But in that moment, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that they had not meant to hurt me. I wanted to believe that this space between us could be closed again. So I asked her gently, "Emma, is there a reason I was not at Ava's birthday?" Her eyes dropped. She picked at her sleeve for a moment before replying. "We were not sure if you would want to come," she said quietly. "David thought maybe you needed more rest. After everything, with Dad, after the move." I looked at her, feeling the weight of that explanation settle into me. They thought for me. They decided for me. Emma must have seen the change in my face because she added, "I am sorry if we got that wrong." I did not respond right away. Instead, I walked to the stove, took the lid off the container, and poured the soup into a pot. As it warmed, the sweet smell of squash filled the kitchen. It reminded me of autumn, of family dinners, of a time when we all sat around the same table. When the soup was ready, I poured 2 bowls and handed one to her. We sat at the table in silence, spooning the soup slowly. She looked up at me, her eyes softer now. "I want things to feel normal again," she said. I nodded. So do I. I looked at my daughter, the same little girl who used to cling to my leg when she was scared, who used to ask me if the moon could follow her home. Now she was a mother, a woman, a mystery I was trying to understand again. And even though my heart still felt bruised, even though questions still hung in the air, I wanted to trust her. A few days passed after Emma's visit. I wanted to believe that her coming over with soup and soft words meant something. I wanted to believe that the little cracks in our relationship could be sealed again with time and patience. But something inside me remained uneasy. It was not just the birthday or the group chat. It was the feeling that I had been slowly moved to the edge of their world, like a book that had been read too many times and then placed on a high shelf, kept, but no longer opened. Still, I tried to stay hopeful. I busied myself with small routines. I cleaned the kitchen cabinets, repotted the plants on the porch, and even baked a lemon loaf for the first time in months. I told myself that love could sometimes grow quiet, but it did not disappear. Then, on a quiet Thursday afternoon, my friend Ruth called. I met Ruth nearly 20 years ago, at a school fundraiser when our daughters were still little girls with messy hair and scraped knees. We had been through many seasons of life together: school plays, divorces, weddings, grief, laughter, and long silences. But no matter how far life scattered us, she always seemed to know when I needed her. "Louisa," she said, her voice warm but cautious. "I have been meaning to call you all week." I smiled. "I am glad you did." There was a pause on the line. "Have you talked to Emma lately?" she asked. I told her about the soup, about the visit, about Ava's drawing of me in a star-covered dress. I tried to keep my voice light, but I must not have done a very good job, because Ruth sighed deeply. "I heard something," she said gently, "and I do not know if I should tell you." My chest tightened. "What did you hear?" Ruth hesitated. "I was at the cafe yesterday, the one near Emma's work. I stopped in to grab a tea, and I saw David there, talking to someone." "Okay," I said slowly. "What is wrong with that?" "It was what he was saying," she replied. "He was on the phone. I did not mean to listen, but I was close enough to hear. He said something about keeping things simple and making sure you do not get too involved." The words felt sharp, like ice slipping down my back. "Are you sure?" I asked. "I am sure of what I heard," Ruth said. "I am not trying to start anything, Louisa. I felt you should know." I sat down at the table, my legs suddenly weak. Benny looked up at me, sensing the shift in my mood. "Did he say anything else?" I asked. Ruth's voice dropped lower. "He said they are trying to make things easier by moving decisions away from you, that Emma has enough stress already, and that you would understand eventually." Understand eventually. The words echoed in my mind. They were trying to keep me out, on purpose. I wanted to believe Ruth was mistaken, that maybe she had misheard. But my heart knew better. The signs had been there. The birthday, the chat, the quiet changes. Now this. Ruth must have sensed my silence. "I am sorry, Louisa," she said. "I know this is painful." "It is," I said quietly. "But I am glad you told me." After we hung up, I sat alone in the kitchen for a long time. The afternoon sun stretched across the floor in golden beams, but I felt cold inside. Was this why Emma had come by? To calm my questions before I asked too many? To soothe me just enough so I would not dig deeper? I did not want to believe that of her. She was my daughter, my heart, my history. But Ruth's words had planted something, a warning, a seed of doubt I could not ignore. Later that evening, I took a walk through the neighborhood. The leaves were beginning to change, turning warm shades of amber and red. I used to walk this path with Emma when she was little. She would hold my hand and ask me about the world. Now she was holding secrets, and I had to decide what to do with them. I did not want to be angry. I did not want to accuse or confront. But I also did not want to sit in silence while decisions were made without me. As I stood at the corner where the old oak tree grew, I looked toward her house down the street. Somewhere inside that home, my daughter and her husband were making choices that pushed me further and further away. And in the quiet evening air, Ruth's warning replayed in my mind. They wanted to make sure I did not get too involved. But what they forgot is that I am already involved. I am the mother. I am the grandmother. And I am not going to disappear quietly. The morning after Ruth's call, I woke up early. The sky outside was still soft and gray, and the world felt quiet, as if it had not yet decided what kind of day it would be. I stood in my kitchen with a warm mug between my hands, staring out the window, trying to shake the feeling that had settled deep inside me. I kept hearing David's voice in my mind. Those words Ruth had repeated. Keep things simple. She will understand eventually. Understand what? That I no longer mattered? That I was just a piece of background furniture in their lives, best kept clean, quiet, and out of the way? I closed my eyes and took a slow breath. No. I would not let this ruin my day. I told myself that Ruth could have misunderstood. Maybe she heard only part of the conversation. Maybe David was simply trying to help Emma manage stress. Perhaps none of this was intentional. Perhaps there was still love there, just hidden under the weight of busy schedules and unspoken expectations. Yes, that was it. Things get lost sometimes in families. People forget to say how they feel. But that does not mean they have stopped caring. I told myself this again and again. I even said it out loud. Still, my stomach felt tight. I decided to distract myself. I made a list of things to do. Clean the pantry. Sort the old photos in the hallway cupboard. Walk Benny to the park. Bake something. Yes, something sweet. Something with cinnamon. If I kept moving, maybe the thoughts would stay still. I scrubbed the kitchen floor until my knees hurt. I folded every towel in the linen closet, even the ones that had not been used in months. I played a slow jazz record while I baked apple muffins, filling the house with the smell of sugar and spice. I told myself everything was fine. But when I sat down to eat one of the muffins, I realized I had no appetite. I looked across the table and saw the empty chair where Emma used to sit as a girl. She would swing her legs under the table, her small hands reaching for whatever treat I had made. She always asked for the one with the most sugar on top. I smiled at the memory. Then my eyes filled with tears. I missed her. Not just her presence, but her trust. There was a time when she told me everything. Her worries, her hopes, her heartbreaks. I had held her through fevers, listened through tears, and celebrated every milestone as if it were my own. Now it seemed she had built a life that no longer needed me. Worse, she had built a wall around it. A wall I could not see over, one I had not been invited to cross. Still, I told myself to wait, to give it time. Perhaps I was overreacting. Perhaps I was being sensitive. I had read articles about aging parents feeling left out, about adult children becoming distant. It said to give them space, to respect their independence. So I tried. That weekend, I did not call. I waited for Emma to reach out. She did not. Sunday came and went. No visit, no message, just silence. I told myself she must be busy. Work, motherhood, life, those things take energy. I tried to understand, but each hour that passed without a knock on the door or a text on my phone chipped away at the story I was telling myself. I kept trying to ignore it, but it was like trying to ignore a splinter in your skin. You can cover it. You can distract yourself. You can pretend it is not there, but the pain will return. Quiet, then sharp, and it will not go away until you face it. That night, I sat in my living room with all the lights off, watching the soft glow of the streetlight through the window. Benny rested beside me, his small head on my lap. I stroked his fur and listened to the ticking of the wall clock. Tick, tick, tick. Each sound reminded me that time was passing, and so was my place in their world. I wanted to believe in the best. I wanted to wait and let love find its way back. But something told me that love, when taken for granted, slowly becomes invisible, and I was tired of pretending not to see it. The first time I noticed it, I told myself I was imagining things. It was a small thing, so small that someone else might not have noticed at all. But I did. Because when you love someone deeply, you study every detail. You memorize the way they smile, the way their eyes soften when they are listening, the way they lean in when they truly care. So when that warmth disappears, even for a second, you feel it. David and Emma had invited me to dinner. It had been a few weeks since I had seen them, and I was trying to be hopeful again. I put on my favorite navy blue blouse, brushed my hair with care, and wore a necklace that Emma had given me years ago. I stood in front of the mirror and gave myself a small nod. "You are not a burden," I whispered. "You are a person who deserves love." When I arrived, Emma greeted me with a quick hug. She seemed distracted, glancing at her phone every few minutes. David was in the kitchen, stirring something on the stove. The children were playing in the other room, their laughter a comforting background to the quiet tension I could feel in the air. I handed Emma a small box of pastries I had picked up from the French bakery on 5th Street. She thanked me, placing them on the counter without really looking at them. We sat down to eat. The food was good. David always knew his way around a kitchen, but the conversation felt strained. Emma talked about her work. David nodded and responded, but there was no spark in their words. I tried to join in, mentioning a book I had been reading, but the topic quickly shifted. I laughed politely when someone made a joke, but inside I felt like a guest, not a mother, not family. Then it happened. Was clearing my plate when I asked a simple question. "Did you get the photos I sent from my trip to the coast last month?" David looked at me, not with anger, not even with annoyance, but with something colder, something that stung more than either. Pity. That was the word that formed in my mind. He looked at me as if I were a small, confused creature asking something foolish. Yes, "We saw them," he said, his voice smooth but thin. It looked quiet out there. He gave a small smile that did not reach his eyes, then turned back to Emma. She did not say anything. They just continued talking, as if I had not spoken at all. I sat there, my fork resting on the edge of my plate, my appetite gone. It was not what he said. It was how he said it. Like I was someone who needed to be handled gently, like I could not quite keep up, like I was outdated. I stared down at the plate, pretending to be interested in the crumbs. I could feel the heat rising behind my eyes. But I did not say anything. I helped clear the table. I offered to wash the dishes, but Emma said they would take care of it. So I stood there awkwardly for a moment before walking into the living room, where the children were still playing. I sat down beside them. Their energy filled the room. For a few minutes I forgot everything else. I smiled at their stories, helped them with a puzzle, and felt the warmth of being needed. But even that moment passed too quickly. Soon it was time to leave. As I stepped toward the door, Emma gave me another quick hug. David said thank you for coming, his voice smooth again. He looked me in the eyes one last time. And there it was again, that distant, polite expression, like I was someone they were trying to be patient with, like I was too fragile to notice what they were not saying. I walked out into the cool night air and closed the door behind me. The street was quiet. The wind brushed against my face. I stood on their porch for a long time, looking up at the stars. They looked the same as they always had, but something inside me had shifted. The way he looked at me stayed in my mind all the way home. It was not cruel, but it was empty, and that emptiness hurt more than I could explain. It had been 3 days since that dinner, 3 days since I felt that hollow look in David's eyes, 3 days since Emma barely met my gaze, 3 days of silence. Again. I kept going through the motions. I fed Benny. I watered the plants. I smiled at neighbors in the hallway. But inside, everything felt uncertain. Like I was walking across a floor that could give way at any second. And then, that Thursday, it happened. David called me. It was not unusual for him to call, but it had been a while. His voice was calm, polite, measured, like always. He asked if I would be home in the morning. He said he had a bit of time after dropping the children off at school and could stop by. I said yes, of course. But when I hung up the phone, I stared at the screen for a long time. Something told me this was my moment, not to argue, not to accuse, but to ask and to listen. The next morning I got up early. I did not dress fancy, just a soft sweater and jeans. I brewed coffee and set out 2 mugs. The house was quiet, still. At exactly 9:15 I heard the knock. David stood at the door, wearing a dark gray coat and holding his phone in one hand. He gave me a brief smile. "Hi, Helen," he said. "Come in," I replied. He stepped inside and looked around like it was his first time here. And yet he had been in this home so many times before. I poured him coffee, and we sat down in the living room, the morning light slipping through the curtains. We talked about small things at first, the children, work, the weather. He seemed relaxed, but I was watching closely. I was no longer afraid to see what was behind his calm expression. And finally, I asked. David, I said slowly, can I ask you something honest? He paused, looking at me carefully. Of course, he said. I took a breath. Why was I left out of the group chat? He blinked. I could see the thoughts racing behind his eyes. I could almost hear the words he was preparing, words that would smooth over the truth, cover it like paint over a crack in the wall. But I kept going. I know it sounds small, but it matters to me. I have noticed other things, too. The silences, the looks, the way you speak to me now, it feels different. And I would rather hear something painful than live in confusion. He sat back in the chair. He did not speak for a long time. Finally, he said, "It is not personal, Helen." I looked at him, waiting. He cleared his throat. The group chat is mostly for quick updates. Things about the children, last-minute plans, stuff like that. Emma and I, well, we just thought it would be easier to manage with fewer people, less explaining, less checking. Less checking, I repeated softly. He nodded. You know, sometimes your messages are a little long or emotional, and Emma gets overwhelmed. That is all. He said it with a calm voice, but I felt every word like a drop of cold rain down my back. Emotional, I said. He nodded again. You care deeply. That is a good thing. But sometimes, especially with the children and work and everything else, it can feel like too much. I sat there, holding my coffee now cold in my hands. So I was removed, I said gently. Not included, because I feel too much. He looked at me, guilt flickering across his face for just a moment. It was not meant to hurt you, he said. But it did, I replied. We were quiet again. I did not yell. I did not cry. I just looked at him and said, David, I raised a daughter who feels deeply. And I love that about her. I am proud of the way she cares, the way she sees people. And if that same quality in me has become inconvenient, then I think the problem is not my emotion. It is your comfort. He said nothing. He looked at his phone. He said he had to go. I walked him to the door. He gave me a quick nod and left. I stood there for a long time after the door closed. The air felt heavier. But at the same time, I felt strangely lighter, because I had spoken the truth. Calmly. Clearly. And now, I could not unsee it. The distance was real, and I was no longer imagining it. After David left, I stood in the hallway, still holding the empty coffee mug in my hand. I did not move for a while. The silence in the house grew louder. Even Benny, my little dog, stayed quiet, watching me with his round, curious eyes. My thoughts would not settle. They swirled like a storm, quiet but fierce inside my head. I tried to clean the kitchen. I wiped the counter that was already clean. I rearranged the sugar and tea jars 3 times. I opened the windows even though it was cold, but nothing helped, because no matter what I did, the same thoughts returned. Your messages are a little long. Emma gets overwhelmed. It is not personal, but it was personal. To me. It felt deeply personal. I sat down on the couch and closed my eyes. I tried to breathe slowly, like I had read in those articles about mindfulness and staying calm. But even my breath felt heavy. Why did those words hurt so much? I was not being dramatic. I was not being selfish. I was simply human. And I was tired of pretending I did not feel these things. That afternoon, I tried to distract myself. I watched a program on television, but I could not even remember what it was about. I tried reading an old book, one I used to love, but I kept reading the same sentence over and over. I made myself a cup of chamomile tea. My mother used to say it could calm anything, a sore stomach, a tired heart, or a restless mind. But even the warm tea could not soften what I was feeling. The truth was, I felt invisible. And now I had confirmation. I was not imagining it. I was not being sensitive. They had made the choice to leave me out, and not just from a group chat, but from closeness, from connection, from the small corners of their lives, where love quietly lives. I thought about texting Emma. But what would I say? Why do you not want me close anymore? Did I become too much? Do you still love me the way you used to? I never imagined I would ask those questions about my own daughter. I never imagined I would feel this much distance from the people I loved most. The sun began to set, casting golden lines across the floor. The quiet of the room pressed into me, and still, my mind raced. I thought about every little moment from the last few months, moments I had pushed aside or explained away. The short replies, the missed calls, the awkward silences when I entered the room. How long had I been trying not to see it? How long had I been hoping it was just stress, or busyness, or forgetfulness? I felt foolish, and then I felt angry. Not at David, not at Emma, but at myself, for letting it go on for so long, for giving so much of my heart without asking if they were still holding it carefully. I got up and walked to the window. Outside, the sky had turned to soft orange and gray. A neighbor walked her dog. A boy rode his bicycle slowly past the gate. The world was still turning, but mine had tilted just a little, enough to make me feel unsteady. That night, I lay in bed with the lamp still on. I stared at the ceiling, watching the light move gently across the walls as cars passed outside. I tried to sleep, but my thoughts would not stop, not even for a moment. And the worst part was not the pain. It was the silence, the space where love used to live. I turned on my side and held the pillow close, as if it could listen. I whispered softly to the night, I do not understand what I did wrong. But the room, as always, gave no answer. The morning after that sleepless night, I moved slowly. Everything felt heavier. My legs, my thoughts, even the soft weight of my cardigan over my shoulders. It was the kind of pain that does not shout. It does not break things or cry out loud. It just sits there, quiet, constant, waiting to be noticed. I did not have the energy to put on music. Even the birds outside sounded too cheerful. I stood at the window and watched the world move on without me. It was raining. Not heavily. Just a light, steady drizzle, the kind that makes the streets shimmer, but never stops people from going where they need to go. I boiled water for tea and stood over the kettle long after it had finished. I was not sure why. Maybe I hoped the steam would warm something inside me. I finally sat down at the kitchen table with my cup. I watched the raindrops trail down the glass. They reminded me of the way tears slide down your face when you are too tired to wipe them away. I had cried the night before, quietly, into my pillow. I had not cried in a long time. Not really. Not since my mother passed. Not since Emma left for college. Not since the last time someone made me feel like I was in the way. Now, the tears had returned. Not in a flood, but like the rain. Gentle, but steady. I could still hear David's voice in my head. It is not personal. But it was. Of course it was. When you love someone and they leave you out, it feels personal. When your family grows distant, it feels like a part of your heart is slowly being erased. That morning, I did not speak to anyone. I turned off my phone. I left the television off. I did not even open the newspaper. I just sat with my quiet pain and let it breathe. I thought about all the dinners I had made for Emma and David. The birthday cakes, the sleepovers with the children, the times I picked up groceries without being asked. Did any of it still matter? Or had I slowly become invisible? It is a strange thing, feeling unseen. It does not happen all at once. It is like fading into the background of your own life. I walked through the house and looked at the framed photographs on the shelves. There was one of Emma as a baby, her tiny hand gripping my finger. Another of her on her wedding day, her face bright with joy. And one of all of us, David, Emma, the children, and me, laughing at a picnic years ago. We looked so happy in that picture. But now I could not remember the last time we laughed together like that. I sat back down by the window and watched the rain again. There was something about rainy days that always made me feel both comforted and alone. They wrapped around the house like a blanket, but they also reminded me of quiet sadness, of goodbyes, of days when no one calls, of long afternoons that stretch out with nothing but silence. I was not angry anymore. I was just tired and hurt and trying to understand. I knew I could not force them to include me. I could not make them see what I had given, what I still wanted to give. That kind of love, if it had to be asked for, was already broken. The house creaked softly as the rain fell. I held my tea, now cold, in both hands. There was no big moment, no dramatic scene. Just a woman, alone in her kitchen, holding the weight of quiet pain with both hands. And still, I hoped. Not because they had given me reason to, but because it was in my nature. Because even when you feel forgotten, the heart keeps whispering, maybe tomorrow will be different. Days passed with the same heavy feeling. I tried to keep busy, but my heart was restless. The silence in the house felt louder every time I thought about the group chat, the messages I was not part of, and the cold distance growing between me and my family. I knew I could not live like this. The unanswered questions burned inside me. I needed to know the truth. So I decided to confront David. It was not easy. I was afraid. Afraid of what I might hear. Afraid of what might break inside me. But I needed an answer. One afternoon, I found him in the living room reading a book. I took a deep breath. "David," I said quietly. He looked up, surprised to see me. "I need to talk to you," I continued. He closed the book and nodded. I sat down opposite him and looked into his eyes. "Why? Am I not in your family group chat?" I asked. His face changed. He looked away for a moment, then back at me. "It is complicated," he said. Please, David, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I deserve to know. I am your mother. I love you. What is going on? He sighed. There are things I cannot explain easily, he said. But I need you to try, I said. I need the truth. It hurts to be left out. It hurts to feel like I am not part of your life anymore. He was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. It is not that we do not want you there, he said. But Emma and we have been dealing with some problems. Things that we did not want to share with you yet. Why not? I asked. Because we thought it would hurt you, he said. I felt a flicker of hope. Tell me, I said. Please. David hesitated. There has been tension between Emma and her husband, he explained. They have been arguing a lot. The group chat was meant to be a space for the children to feel safe. I listened carefully. So, it was to protect them? I asked. Yes, he said, but maybe it was not the right choice to leave you out. I did not think it would hurt you so much. I understand, I said softly. But it did hurt. It feels like a wall has grown between us. David looked sad. I am sorry, he said. I did not want to cause you pain. I nodded. I want us to be honest, I said, even if it is hard. He looked at me with tired eyes. I want that too, he said. We sat in silence for a while. The room felt heavy with things left unsaid. Then, I asked the hardest question. Do you think I am a burden? I whispered. David's eyes widened. No, he said quickly. You are not a burden. You are my mother. I love you. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. But sometimes it feels like I am too much, I said. Like I am holding on too tightly. David reached out and took my hand. You are not too much, he said. We just got lost in the chaos. I promise we will try to do better. I looked at his hand in mine. It was warm and real. For the first time in many days, I felt a small light inside me. But the pain was still there, because words are one thing. Actions are another. I knew the journey to heal was only beginning. That evening, I sat alone in my room, thinking about what David had said. I wondered if Emma knew about the group chat, if she felt the same pain, if she missed me too. I wished I could talk to her, to hear her voice, to feel close again. But for now, I had to wait. I had to be patient. Had to be strong, because I needed answers, and I would keep asking until I found them. It was a quiet afternoon when everything finally became clear. I had spent weeks trying to hold on to hope, trying to understand why I was being left out, why the distance between my family and me felt so wide. But that day, the truth found me, not in a harsh word or a sudden outburst, but in a small moment that changed everything. Emma called me. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. "Mom," she said, "can we talk?" I held my breath. I had been waiting for this call. We agreed to meet at a small cafe near my house. It was a place I had loved when Emma was young, a place full of memories. When she arrived, she looked tired. Her eyes held a sadness I had not seen before. We sat down, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she began. "Mom, I want to be honest with you, she said. There are things I have been afraid to say. I nodded, encouraging her to continue. It has been hard for me, she said. Hard to admit, even to myself, but I have to, because I do not want to keep hiding. She took a deep breath. I have been struggling with depression, she said quietly. The word hit me like a wave. I had heard about depression before, but it was always something distant, something that happened to other people. Not my daughter, not Emma. Tears came to my eyes. I am so sorry, Emma, I said. Why did you not tell me? I was scared, she said. Scared you would worry too much, scared you might not understand. I reached out and took her hand. Emma, I may not know everything, I said gently, but I will always try to understand. You are not alone. She smiled weakly. There is more, she said. The group chat. It was a way to protect the children. I wanted to keep the worries away from them. I see, I said. It was not about you, she added quickly. It was about trying to keep peace. Her honesty was painful but healing. I felt tears streaming down my face. I had misunderstood. I had felt hurt. But now I saw a new truth. We talked for hours. She told me about her struggles, the nights she had cried alone, the days she felt too tired to get out of bed. She said she had felt like she was losing herself, but she was trying to fight, trying to find help. I listened, my heart breaking and growing stronger at the same time. I realized that the distance between us was not because they did not love me. It was because they were carrying heavy burdens, and I had been too focused on my own pain to see it. I told Emma about my own feelings of loneliness, my quiet pain. She held my hand tightly. I did not know you felt this way, she said. I wish we had talked sooner. So do I said. From that day, things began to change. We made promises to be more open, to share even the difficult moments. I was no longer just the mother or grandmother left out of a group chat. I was a part of their lives again, not perfectly, not without struggle, but with honesty. I understood then that family is not always easy. It is messy. It is full of mistakes and misunderstandings. But it is also full of love. And that love, even when hidden, is strong enough to heal. I left the cafe feeling lighter. The rain had stopped. The sky was clear, and for the first time in a long time, I believed that we could find our way back to each other. After that day at the cafe with Emma, something inside me shifted. I thought the worst was behind us, that the truth would bring us closer. But life, I soon learned, does not always follow the path we hope for. The honesty we shared was a beginning, yet beneath it all, the pain remained. There were walls that even words could not tear down. I tried to hold on, to be patient and understanding. But the silence from David grew deeper, and the distance in our conversations became colder. He avoided my calls and spent more time with his own world, leaving me feeling invisible once again. One evening, after weeks of this quiet ache, I sat alone in my living room. The house was too big and too quiet. The ticking of the clock was loud in my ears. My heart felt heavy. I realized that staying in this space, waiting for things to change, was hurting me more than helping. Sometimes walking away is not about giving up. It is about protecting yourself, I knew I needed to step back, not forever, but for now, to find my own strength again. I packed a small bag. It was not a grand decision, no dramatic scene, just a quiet choice to take some time for myself. I went to a small cottage by the lake, a place I had loved in my younger days. The fresh air, the gentle sounds of water, and the calm of nature welcomed me. For days, I did not call anyone. I did not check my phone. I allowed myself to be alone, to feel everything I had been holding inside. At first, the loneliness was sharp. It hurt. It made me question if I was doing the right thing. But slowly I began to breathe again. I watched the sun rise and set. I listened to the birds sing. I walked by the water's edge and felt the cool breeze on my face. I let myself cry without shame. I thought about the family I loved and the pain between us. I thought about the hurt of being left out, the silence, and the unspoken words. I thought about how I had been holding on so tightly to a hope that was breaking me. And then I thought about me, about the woman who had always been there, giving love and support. The woman who deserved to feel seen and valued. I realized that walking away was not rejection. It was self-care. It was saying, I matter too. After some days, I called Emma. We spoke for a while, gently and honestly. The walls were still there, but now they felt smaller. I called David next. He did not answer, but I left a message. I told him I needed time, but I still cared. That was the beginning of a new chapter. Walking away gave me space to heal. It gave me clarity. It gave me the strength to face whatever would come next. And though the pain stayed, I knew I was not alone. Because sometimes to find your way back, you first need to step away. Walking away gave me the space I needed. The quiet days by the lake helped me breathe again, helped me feel a little lighter. But even as the days passed, I realized something important. The pain did not leave me so easily. It stayed. It stayed in the quiet moments when I was alone with my thoughts. It stayed when the sun set and the sky turned dark. It stayed like a shadow that followed me everywhere. Some people say time heals all wounds. I used to believe that too. But I learned that some wounds do not disappear with time. Instead, they live inside you, sometimes hidden beneath smiles, sometimes rising up without warning. I missed my family deeply. But the pain was not just about missing them. It was about feeling invisible. It was about feeling like I was not important enough to be included, to be seen. I thought about the group chat, the messages I never received, the laughter I was not part of, the plans I did not know about. It was like being outside in the cold while everyone else was warm inside. I wanted to be part of their lives. I wanted to feel connected again. But I did not know how. I tried to call David again. This time he answered. His voice was tired. "Mom," he said, "I am sorry. I have been busy." I wanted to say so much. I wanted to tell him how much it hurt, but the words caught in my throat. "It is okay," I said quietly. "I just want us to be honest." There was silence on the other end. "I want that too," he finally said. But even with his words, the pain stayed. I felt like I was standing in a room with broken windows. The cold wind came in. No matter how much I tried to close the door, I knew healing would take time. And maybe, some things could never be fixed. Some nights, I cried quietly, not wanting anyone to hear. I cried for the mother I wanted to be, for the daughter I wanted to understand me, for the family I wanted to hold close. I also cried for myself, for the woman who felt forgotten, for the heart that ached. But in those tears, I found a small strength. Because feeling pain means you care. Because feeling pain means you are alive. Because feeling pain means there is hope for healing. I wrote in my journal every day. I wrote about the pain. I wrote about the memories. I wrote about the moments I wished I could change. Writing helped me see the pain more clearly. It helped me feel less alone. Slowly, I began to forgive. Not the people who hurt me, not yet, but myself, for being vulnerable, for feeling hurt, for needing love. The pain stayed, but it no longer ruled me. It was a part of my story, not the whole story. I looked out the window one morning and saw the sun shining. It reminded me that even after the darkest night, the light comes again. I promised myself to keep moving forward, to keep hoping, to keep loving, even if it was hard, because that is what it means to be human, to live with pain and still find joy, to carry scars and still find beauty, to feel broken and still be whole. The pain stayed, but I was still here, still breathing, still fighting, still loving, and that was enough. Sometimes, when the house was quiet and the evening light softened the walls, I found myself drifting back to the past. The past was a place I missed more than I wanted to admit. I missed the days when laughter filled every corner of our home, when the smell of fresh coffee and baked bread woke me in the mornings, when my children's voices echoed through the rooms, full of energy and joy. Those days seem so far away now. The memories were like old photographs, beautiful, frozen moments that I could look at, but could never touch again. I remembered the birthdays we celebrated together, the games we played in the garden, the family dinners where stories were shared and smiles were easy. I missed the closeness we once had. I missed feeling like I belonged. The past was simple then. Or maybe I only remembered it that way. Now the silence between us felt heavier. The space grew larger. I missed the past, but I also knew that I could not live there. The past was gone, and holding on to it too tightly only made the pain sharper. Still, sometimes I allowed myself to close my eyes and visit those moments. I saw my children as small, laughing and chasing butterflies. I heard my husband's deep voice telling a joke. I felt the warmth of their hugs. I remembered feeling safe and loved. Those memories gave me comfort. But they also brought sadness, because I wanted to create new memories like those. I wanted to fill the empty spaces with love again, but I was not sure how. I told my friend Sarah about these feelings during one of our phone calls. Sometimes, I said, I miss the past more than anything. It feels like a beautiful dream I cannot reach. Sarah listened carefully. She said, I understand. The past is a part of us, but the future is where we live now. Maybe the pain you feel is because your heart is ready for something new, but you are not sure what yet. Her words stayed with me. I began to think about what new memories I wanted to build. I wanted to find joy again, even in small moments. I wanted to be present, not just remembering what was. I wanted to be part of life, not just a shadow of the past. One afternoon, I took out an old photo album. I looked at the pictures and smiled. Then I made a promise to myself, would cherish those memories but not let them hold me back. I would open my heart to the future, even if it was uncertain. I realized that missing the past was natural. It was a sign of love and connection. But love also means moving forward. I knew the road ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges, heartbreak, and hope all mixed together. But I was ready to try, because I wanted to believe that one day my family and I could find our way back. That new laughter could fill the rooms again. That love could grow in new ways. For now, I held the past gently in my heart, and I took one small step toward the future. One of the hardest parts of all this was feeling so alone. Even surrounded by people, I could feel the distance growing between me and my family. It was as if I was watching their lives from far away, not part of the story anymore. I needed someone to talk to, someone who could listen without judgment, who could understand the confusion and pain. That someone was Emma. She had been my friend for many years. We met at the book club, and even though life took us in different directions, our friendship remained steady. Emma was gentle and patient, and I knew I could be myself around her. One afternoon, I called Emma. Her voice was warm and familiar on the other end of the line. "How are you?" she asked softly. I hesitated. It was hard to put into words what I was feeling, but I knew I had to try. "I am not sure," I said slowly. "I feel lost. I miss my family, but it feels like they do not want me there anymore. It hurts, Emma. It really hurts." Emma did not say anything at first. She let the silence fill the space between us. Then she spoke with kindness. "Sometimes when people hurt us, it is not because they want to. Sometimes they do not understand how their actions affect others, and sometimes they are dealing with their own pain." Her words made me think. Maybe David and the others were struggling in ways I could not see. "But it still hurts," I replied. "I know," Emma said gently, "and it is okay to feel that way. You are allowed to feel pain. You are allowed to need support." We talked for hours that day. I told her everything, about the group chat, the silence, the moments when I felt invisible. I shared my fears and my hopes. Emma listened without interrupting. She did not offer quick answers or simple solutions. Instead, she helped me see things from a new perspective. "Have you told your family how you feel?" she asked. I shook my head, even though she could not see me. "It is hard," I said. "I do not want to cause more trouble." "Sometimes being honest is the first step to healing," Emma said. "It can open doors that were closed." Her words gave me courage. The next day, I wrote a letter to David. I took my time, choosing my words carefully. I wanted to be honest, but kind. I told him how much I loved him, how much I missed him, and how much it hurt to feel left out. I sent the letter without expecting a reply. Days passed. I did not hear from David, but Emma reminded me to be patient. "Healing takes time," she said. "You are planting a seed. It may take a while to grow." Emma's friendship became a lifeline for me. Whenever I felt overwhelmed, I called her. Whenever I doubted myself, she reminded me of my strength. Through our conversations, I began to understand something important. I was not alone. Even when my family felt distant, I had friends who cared, and that made a difference. One evening, after a long day, I sat by the window and looked at the stars. I thought about everything I had shared with Emma. I felt a quiet peace inside me. I was still hurting, but I was healing too. I realized that talking to a friend was not a weakness. It was a sign of courage. It was a way to carry the pain without being crushed by it. And it was a reminder that even in the darkest times, connection can bring light. Saying goodbye is never easy. Even when it is the right thing to do, it feels like a weight pressing on your heart. But sometimes, to find peace, you have to let go. I learned this lesson the hard way. After weeks of waiting, I finally heard back from David. His message was short, polite, but distant. He said he was busy and did not want to discuss the past right now. It was not the answer I had hoped for, but it was an answer. I sat with the silence that followed, the silence that said more than words ever could. That evening, I stood by the window, watching the rain fall softly outside. The drops slid slowly down the glass, blurring the world beyond. It felt like my heart, clouded, unsure, and heavy. Realized then that I could no longer wait for a family who might never truly see me. I had been holding on to a dream that was breaking apart. Holding on was hurting me more than letting go. So, I made a decision. I decided to say goodbye. Not in anger or bitterness, but with a quiet strength I did not know I had. I wrote a letter to David, my hands trembling as I put my feelings on paper. I told him I loved him, and that I hoped one day we could find understanding. But I also said I needed to live my life with peace and self-respect. I was not closing the door forever, but I was closing it for now. It was a goodbye to the past I wished for. A goodbye to the family I wanted but could not reach, and a goodbye to the pain that had held me back. After sending the letter, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. It was like releasing a heavy stone I had carried for too long. I also felt proud of myself. Saying goodbye was not weakness. It was courage. It was the courage to love myself enough to move forward. Over the next days, I focused on small things that brought me comfort. I cooked my favorite meals, went for walks in the fresh air, and read books that made me smile. I allowed myself to cry when I needed to. I let the tears wash away the sadness and make room for healing. I started to notice small moments of joy, the sound of birds singing outside my window, the warmth of the sun on my skin, the peaceful quiet of my home. I realized that goodbye did not mean the end of everything. It meant the beginning of something new. A chance to find happiness on my own terms. A chance to rebuild my life with hope and kindness. One afternoon, I visited the little garden behind my house. The flowers were blooming, their colors bright against the green leaves. I knelt down and touched a soft petal, feeling the gentle life in it. It reminded me that even after cold winters, new growth is possible. I smiled quietly to myself. I was saying goodbye to the past, but I was also saying hello to the future where I would be strong, whole, and free. Saying goodbye was a gift I gave myself, a gift of peace, love, and courage. And even though the pain was still there, I knew I could face it because I had chosen myself. Being alone is a strange feeling. It is quiet and still, but it can also be loud inside your heart and mind. After I said goodbye to the family I had hoped to be close with again, I found myself truly alone for the first time in a long time. It was a new kind of silence, one that was both peaceful and heavy. I looked around my house, noticing every little detail. The walls were the same, but the energy was different. There were no phone calls, no messages, no laughter echoing in. The rooms. Just me. Alone. At first, the loneliness felt like a cold wind that blew through me. I missed the company of others, the familiar voices, the simple conversations, the feeling of belonging. Sometimes I caught myself reaching for my phone, hoping to hear from someone, but the silence answered instead. It was difficult to accept that I was alone, not because I had no one, but because the people who mattered most had chosen distance. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a deep river, watching the others on the other side, separated by water I could not cross. Yet, as days passed, I began to notice something else. Being alone also gave me space. Space to breathe, to think, to feel without interruption. Space to discover parts of myself I had forgotten. I started waking up earlier, before the world outside was busy with noise. I would sit by the window with a cup of tea, watching the soft morning light touch the trees. In those moments, I felt calm. I began to enjoy my own company. I learned to listen to my thoughts and feelings without fear or judgment. I realized that being alone did not mean being lonely forever. It was a chance to build a new kind of relationship, the one with myself. Sometimes I would go for long walks in the park nearby. The fresh air, the sound of leaves rustling in the wind, the sight of children playing. It all reminded me that life goes on, even when we feel lost. I felt a quiet connection with the world around me, a feeling that I was part of something bigger. At night, I would sit with a journal and write down my thoughts. Writing helped me understand my feelings better. I wrote about the pain, the hope, the memories, and the dreams I still held inside. I wrote letters I never sent, speaking to the people who had hurt me or who I missed deeply. Through these letters, I found forgiveness, not just for them, but for myself. I forgave myself for holding on too tightly and for feeling weak. I forgave myself for hoping and for hurting. Being alone gave me the gift of self-compassion. I began to take better care of myself. I cooked meals that made me feel good. I took baths with warm water and lavender scents. I read books that lifted my spirit. I even started small exercises, stretching my body gently and breathing deeply. These small acts of kindness made a difference. They reminded me that I deserved care and love, even if it came from me. One evening, as I sat quietly in my living room, I realized something important. Being alone had changed me. I was still the same person, but I was also new, stronger, wiser, and more peaceful. I understood that being alone was not a punishment. It was a time to heal, to grow, and to prepare for whatever came next. I knew that one day I would open my heart again, maybe to family, maybe to new friends, maybe to love. But for now, I was learning to be whole by myself. The silence was no longer frightening. It was comforting. I was alone, yes, but I was not broken. I was not lost. I was here, and I was ready to keep moving forward. Time has a quiet way of changing us. Sometimes the change is slow and barely noticed. Other times it is sudden and clear, like the first light of dawn after a long night. I have learned that I am not the same person I was before. The woman who felt invisible, hurt, and confused has transformed, though not in ways I expected. The days of feeling alone and lost are still a part of me, but they no longer define me. They are like old scars, reminders of pain, but also proof of survival. I have grown stronger, even if that strength feels gentle and quiet. One morning, I looked in the mirror and saw a woman who carried her story in her eyes. There was sadness, yes, but also a calm confidence. It was not a loud or proud confidence, but a deep knowing that I mattered, regardless of what others thought or said. I realized that I had stopped waiting for approval from my family. Their opinions no longer shaped my self-worth. I was learning to love myself for who I am, not who I wished to be. This shift was not easy. It took many moments of doubt and tears. But with each day, the self-doubt grew quieter. I began to listen to my own voice, my hopes, my needs, my dreams. I also noticed a new sense of patience within me. I had been rushing to fix things, to be accepted, to feel whole. Now, I understood that healing is not a race. It is a slow journey, with many steps forward and sometimes backward. I began to appreciate the little things more. The smell of fresh coffee in the morning, the soft touch of a blanket, the sound of birds outside my window. These small joys became anchors, reminding me that life could be beautiful even in hard times. I also learned to set boundaries. For years, I had put others' needs before my own, hoping it would bring me closer to them. But now, I understood that it was okay to say no. It was okay to protect my heart. When my family reached out occasionally, I was different. I listened with calmness instead of fear. I spoke with honesty instead of pain. And if they hurt me again, I was ready to walk away without guilt. This new self-respect felt like a quiet power inside me. I also began to explore interests I had put aside. I joined a painting class at the community center. At first, I was nervous and unsure. But with every brushstroke, I felt more connected to myself. Painting became a way to express emotions I could not find words for. I also started volunteering at the local library. Helping others gave me a sense of purpose and connection. It reminded me that I was part of a larger community, even if my family felt distant. One day, a young woman from the library asked me about my life. I shared a little, carefully. She listened with kindness and curiosity. It felt good to be heard without judgment. Through these new experiences, I discovered that I was capable of joy again. I laughed more, smiled more, and even dreamed again. I realized that I was not the same woman who had started this journey. I was wiser, stronger, and more whole. And yet, I was still me. I was still the woman who loved her family deeply, even if they could not always love me back. I was still the woman who wanted to belong, but who now knew that belonging could come from many places, not just blood. This realization brought a quiet peace. I knew that life would continue to bring challenges, but I was ready. I was not the same woman who waited in silence. I was a woman who spoke, who chose, who lived. I was not broken. I was growing, and that made all the difference. Sometimes, hope begins with the smallest things. A simple smile, a kind word, or even a gentle breeze can light the way when everything feels dark. After so many difficult months, I found that a small light had started to glow inside me. It was quiet at first, almost easy to miss, but it was there, and it grew stronger each day. I remember the morning it happened clearly. I had just finished my breakfast, sitting by the window with a warm cup of tea. The sky was still gray, and the rain was falling softly outside. I felt tired, a little lonely, but I did not feel the heavy weight of sadness that usually sat on my chest. That morning I noticed a single bird perched on a branch outside my window. It looked wet from the rain, its feathers ruffled, but the bird sang a small, clear song, a simple tune, nothing grand. Still, it made me smile. I realized then that even in the storm, life goes on. Even in the darkest times, there can be moments of beauty and hope. That small song became a symbol for me. It reminded me that I was still alive, that I still had the power to find joy, even if it was just a little at a time. Over the next days, I started to look for other small lights. I noticed the way the sun peeked through the clouds, turning the raindrops into tiny diamonds. I noticed the smell of fresh bread from the bakery down the street. I noticed the warmth of my blanket in the quiet evenings. These small things did not fix everything. They did not erase the pain or the loneliness, but they made the pain easier to carry. One afternoon, I took a walk through the park near my home. The world was still wet from the rain, but the air smelled fresh and clean. I saw children playing in puddles, laughing and jumping without care. Their happiness was contagious. I smiled to myself, feeling a lightness I had not known for a long time. As I walked, I thought about the journey I had been on, the loss, the pain, the loneliness, and now, this small light of hope. It was fragile, but it was real. I realized that hope is not a big, bright flame that burns all the darkness away at once. It is more like a candle in a dark room. Sometimes it flickers and feels weak, but it keeps shining. And sometimes that little candle grows. It grows into a lantern that guides your way. And eventually, it becomes a fire that warms your heart. I decided to protect this small light. I would not let it go out. I started to care for myself even more. I made plans to visit friends I had lost touch with. I called a neighbor to ask how she was doing. I signed up for a cooking class, something I had always wanted to try but never had the courage to do. Each small step felt like a spark feeding the flame inside me. That evening, I wrote in my journal. Today, I found a small light inside me. It was not bright, but it was enough to see the path ahead. I will follow it, step by step. I knew that the road ahead would still have challenges. Old wounds might ache again. I might feel lonely or sad. But this small light gave me strength to keep going. I was no longer just surviving. I was beginning to live again. And that made all the difference. There is something powerful in beginnings. Even after many hard days, many moments of pain, a new beginning can bring hope. It does not mean that the past is forgotten or erased. It means that I choose to move forward, to take steps toward a new life, my life. After I found that small light inside me, I knew I was ready to begin again. It was not a sudden change. It was not a loud declaration. It was a quiet decision deep inside my heart. I began by changing small parts of my daily routine. Instead of sitting inside the house all day, I started to go outside more often. The fresh air helped clear my mind. I began walking in the mornings, sometimes slowly, sometimes with more energy. The movement made me feel alive. I also decided to take better care of myself. I cooked healthy meals. I made time to read books that inspired me. I listened to music that calmed my soul. These small acts of self-care felt like gifts I was giving to myself. One day, I signed up for a yoga class at the community center. I was nervous at first because I had never done yoga before. I worried that I might not be able to keep up or that others would be better. But when I walked into the quiet room, I felt a warm welcome. The teacher, a kind woman named Sarah, explained the simple poses gently. I followed her instructions carefully. I felt my body stretch and relax. For the first time in a long time, I felt connected to my own strength. The class became a special part of my week. It was a time to breathe deeply, to focus on the present moment, and to be kind to my body and mind. Besides yoga, I also returned to painting. I had stopped painting after my family began to drift away. Now, I picked up my brushes again. The colors and shapes on the canvas helped me express feelings I could not put into words. I painted pictures of gardens, sunsets, and sometimes the quiet streets of my neighborhood. Each painting was a little story of hope, healing, and new beginnings. In the evenings, I started journaling again. Writing helped me sort through my thoughts and feelings. It was like talking to a friend who would never judge me. One night, I wrote, "Today, I took a step. I am beginning again. I do not know where this path will lead, but I am ready to walk it." I shared some of these changes with a few close friends. Their support meant the world to me. They encouraged me, listened to me, and reminded me that I was not alone. I also reconnected with my neighbor, Mrs. Harper, who lived next door. We had been friendly before, but never close. Now we started having tea together once a week. Our conversations were simple but meaningful. She shared stories from her life, and I shared some of mine. These connections made me feel rooted again. I felt part of a community, even if it was a small one. At times, the past still called to me. Memories of family gatherings I was not invited to. Messages I was left out of. Words that hurt. But when those feelings came, I reminded myself gently that my new beginning was for me, not for anyone else. I was learning to forgive myself for staying silent too long. I was learning to love myself in ways I had forgotten. I also learned to say no to people or situations that did not bring me peace. I chose my energy carefully. It was a lesson in respect for my own heart. One morning, as I looked out my kitchen window, I felt a quiet joy. I realized that I was no longer afraid of the future. I was not rushing to fix everything or waiting for others to include me. I was living on my own terms. I was beginning again, one day at a time. This new beginning was not perfect. There were hard moments, tears, and doubts. But there was also laughter, smiles, and hope. I was becoming whole again, and that was a beautiful thing. Sometimes, when we begin to heal, the past tries to return. Like a shadow that follows us, old people or memories may come back with new intentions. For me, It was the return of someone I thought I had left behind. It was a quiet afternoon when I first heard from him again. The phone rang, and when I saw his name on the screen, my heart skipped a beat. I had not expected this call, not after everything that had happened. I took a deep breath and answered. His voice was soft, almost hesitant. "Hello," he said. "Can we talk?" I felt a mix of emotions, surprise, confusion, and a small spark of hope. Could things be different now? Could he really want to make amends? But I also remembered the pain, the silence, and the feeling of being left out. I knew I had to be careful. We spoke for a few minutes. He said he had been thinking about me and wanted to try again. He said he missed the connection we once had. I listened quietly, without interrupting. After the call ended, I sat in silence. My mind was full of questions. Was this real? Was he sincere? Or was it just another way to come back without true change? I realized that I had changed. I was not the same person who would accept empty words. I had learned to value myself more. I had found strength in my solitude and hope in new beginnings. I decided not to rush into any decisions. I wanted to see actions, not just hear promises. Over the next days, he sent messages, sometimes apologizing, sometimes asking to meet. Each message stirred feelings inside me, some warm, some wary. One afternoon, I met a close friend and shared what was happening. She listened carefully and said, "It is okay to protect your heart. You have grown, and you deserve respect." Her words helped me see clearly. I was not obligated to open the door just because someone knocked. I could choose who I let in. I thought about the times I had tried to trust before, only to be hurt again. I thought about the nights I cried alone and the quiet pain that stayed long after goodbyes. I decided to write him a message. "Thank you for reaching out. I am glad you want to talk. But I need time. I need to see that things will be different before I can open my heart again." When I sent the message, I felt a wave of relief. I was setting boundaries with kindness and honesty. Days passed. He respected my request and gave me space. That made me hopeful. But the real test came when he wanted to meet in person. I was nervous but agreed. I chose a public place, a small cafe near the park. I wanted to feel safe and in control. When he arrived, I noticed he looked different, tired, maybe sorry, but also uncertain. We talked for a long time. He listened as I shared my feelings. I spoke about the pain of being left out and the loneliness I felt. I told him how hard it was to trust again. He did not interrupt. He did not try to fix things with quick answers. Instead, he said he understood and wanted to do better. For the first time, I saw a glimmer of honesty in his eyes. It was not perfect, but it was a start. After our meeting, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Hope, yes, but also caution. I knew that healing takes time, that trust must be earned slowly. I told myself, I am different now. I will choose carefully. I will protect my heart. The days that followed were not easy. Sometimes I felt pulled back to old patterns, to the comfort of familiar voices. But I also remembered the small light that had begun to grow inside me. I practiced saying no when I needed to. I reminded myself of my worth. I talked to my friends about my feelings. Their support kept me grounded. One evening, I sat by the window, Again, watching the rain. I thought about the path ahead. I realized that whether or not he stayed in my life, I had already made the most important choice. I chose myself. And that choice gave me peace. It gave me power. It gave me freedom. I look back and realize that I am not the same woman I was before. The experiences, the pain, the quiet moments alone, they have changed me in ways I never expected. I am different now, stronger, wiser, and more aware of who I am and what I deserve. For a long time, I did not understand this change. I thought I was broken or lost. I believed that my worth depended on others, on my family, on their approval, on being included. But now, I see that my true value comes from within. This journey has taught me something important. Growth is not easy. It is often slow and painful, but it is also beautiful. I remember the days when I felt invisible, when my calls were not returned, when I was left out of messages, gatherings, and family moments. Those days were dark and lonely. I thought I was unimportant. I thought I had failed. But now, I know better. Those moments were not about me. They were about others and their choices. I am not responsible for their actions or their silence. I am responsible for my own happiness. The difference in me is quiet but powerful. It is in the way I hold myself now, the way I speak with confidence, the way I listen to my own feelings instead of pushing them away. I have learned to set boundaries, not because I want to keep people out, but because I want to protect my heart. Saying no is no longer a source of guilt. It is an act of self-respect. I find myself smiling more, not because my past disappeared, but because I have found peace in my present. There are days when the old feelings still come. Sadness, anger, loneliness. They are part of my story. But I face them with courage. I do not hide from them or let them control me. Sometimes I sit quietly and reflect. I ask myself, what do I need right now? What will help me grow? And I listen. I listen to my heart. I have started making plans for the future. Not just dreaming, but real plans. Things I want to do for myself, for my joy. I think about travel, hobbies, maybe even learning something new. This is a new chapter. One where I am the author of my own story. My relationships with others have changed too. I no longer seek approval from everyone. I choose to spend time with people who lift me up, who respect me, who bring kindness into my life. It feels good to be surrounded by love and respect. It feels good to give those things in return. I am learning to forgive, not just others, but myself as well. Forgiving does not mean forgetting or excusing hurt. It means releasing the heavy weight that stops me from moving forward. When I forgive, I free myself. One evening, I stood in front of the mirror and looked deeply into my own eyes. I saw someone who had been through storms and survived. Someone who had learned, grown, and healed. I whispered softly, "I am proud of you." That moment was a turning point. I realized that I am worthy of love, not because of what I do or how others see me, but because I am who I am. I am enough. This new strength does not make me arrogant or cold. It makes me gentle with myself and others. It helps me choose wisely and live fully. Sometimes I share my story with friends. I tell them about the pain and the growth. I want them to know that it is okay to struggle, to feel lost, and to find their way again. We support each other in this journey. I also write in my journal every night. I capture my thoughts, my hopes, and my lessons. Writing helps me remember how far I have come and reminds me to be patient with myself. I see now that life is not about perfection. It is about learning, healing, and embracing all parts of ourselves, the good and the difficult. I am different now, but I am still me. A woman who loves, who hopes, who dreams. I am someone who has faced darkness and chosen light. This transformation has given me a quiet confidence. It is not loud or boastful, but calm and steady. I feel ready to face whatever comes next, because I know who I am, and I know what I deserve. Choosing myself was not an easy decision. It was not sudden or simple. It was a quiet, steady choice that I made every day. A choice to put my own needs, my own heart, and my own peace above everything else. For years, I had put others first. My family, my friends, even strangers sometimes. I believed that my worth came from how much I could give and how much I could please. But slowly, I began to realize something very important. I could not pour from an empty cup. I was exhausted, emotionally drained. Sometimes I felt invisible, like my feelings did not matter. That feeling was painful, but it was also a wake-up call. It was time to change. Choosing myself meant setting boundaries. It meant saying no when I needed to, even if it disappointed others. It meant accepting that I could not fix everyone's problems or make everyone happy. That was difficult to accept, because I love my family, and I want to be there for them. But love does not mean losing myself. I remember a particular moment that changed everything for me. It was a late afternoon. The sky was soft with colors of orange and pink. I sat on my porch with a cup of tea, thinking deeply. I had just received a message from a family member asking for a favor, something big, something that would take my time and energy. In the past, I would have immediately said yes, but this time I paused. I thought about how I felt. Tired. Yes, but also hopeful. Hopeful that I could choose differently. I took a deep breath and wrote back gently, "I am sorry, but I cannot help this time. I need to focus on myself for a while." The silence that followed was louder than I expected. No angry messages, no guilt trips, just quiet. That moment felt like a victory, a small but powerful step toward choosing myself. Choosing myself also meant forgiving. Forgiving those who had hurt me, but more importantly, forgiving myself for staying too long in places that did not serve my happiness. I had blamed myself for the past, for not being enough, for not seeing the signs, for hoping too much. But I learned that self-blame is a heavy burden. It does not help us grow. It only holds us down. When I forgave myself, I felt lighter. I felt free. I started to listen to my own voice more, to trust my own instincts, to honor my feelings, even when they were difficult. Self-care became a priority. I began small, taking walks in the park, reading books that inspired me, and making time for quiet moments. Those moments were not selfish. They were necessary. Every day I reminded myself, I matter. My feelings matter. Choosing myself did not mean I was alone. It meant I was whole. I found strength in my solitude. I discovered new parts of me that I had forgotten. Parts that were creative, curious, and hopeful. One day, I signed up for a painting class. I had not picked up a brush since I was young, but I wanted to try. It was scary at first. I worried I was too old or not good enough. But with every stroke of color on the canvas, I felt joy. A joy that came from doing something just for me. Choosing myself also changed how I saw relationships. I stopped chasing after people who did not value me. I stopped trying to fix broken connections. Instead, I welcomed people who brought kindness and respect into my life. People who saw me, who listened, and who cared. I learned that it is okay to say goodbye to those who do not support our growth. That was a difficult lesson. Because sometimes choosing myself meant walking away. But I understood that walking away is not failure. It is courage. It is love. Love for myself. Now, when I wake up in the morning, I feel peace. I feel a calm excitement about my day. I know that I am living for myself, not for others' expectations. I am learning to celebrate my victories, big and small. I celebrate the days when I choose kindness over anger, the moments when I listen to my heart instead of fear. Choosing myself is an ongoing journey. There are days when old doubts come back. Days when I wonder if I am doing the right thing. But those days are fewer now. I hold on to the truth that I am enough, that my happiness matters. And when I look in the mirror, I see a woman who has chosen herself again and again. A woman who is proud of her journey. I am not perfect. I still make mistakes, but I forgive myself and keep moving forward. Choosing myself has given me a new kind of freedom. Freedom to be who I am, without apology, and that is the greatest gift I have ever given myself. A new day began, but it was not just the start of another morning. It was a symbol of something deeper, renewal, hope, and calm after the storm of so many emotions. I woke up feeling different, not because everything had changed outside, but because something inside me had shifted. The sunlight poured softly through my bedroom window. It warmed my face gently, like a quiet reminder that life moves forward. I stretched slowly and took a deep breath. The air felt fresh, clean, full of possibility. I sat on the edge of my bed and looked around my room. Everything was familiar, but I saw it with new eyes. The small vase on my nightstand, the books stacked on the shelf, the photograph of my family that I once thought brought sadness. Now they felt like parts of my life's puzzle, pieces that shaped who I was. For a moment, I allowed myself to smile without guilt. I smiled because I had survived. Not because I had forgotten the pain, but because I was still here, still standing. This day was mine. I made a cup of tea and sat by the window. Outside, the world was waking up. The birds chirped. Neighbors started their routines. The soft hum of cars passing by. It was ordinary, but to me, it felt extraordinary. I thought about the journey I had been on, the moments of confusion, sadness, anger, and loneliness. The times I had cried alone, the times I had wanted to give up. And yet, here I was, stronger, more peaceful. I realized that strength does not mean never feeling pain. It means feeling pain and choosing to move forward anyway. I looked at my hands, the hands that had held so much. Love, hurt, hope, and now, a new beginning. Those hands had cooked family meals, wiped away tears, and now, they were ready to build a life that was truly mine. As I sipped my tea, I thought about the future. Not with fear or doubt, but with quiet excitement. I wanted to fill my days with things that brought me joy, to learn new skills, meet new people, and explore parts of the world I had not seen. The idea of traveling alone had once seemed impossible. Now, it felt like a dream worth chasing. I imagined walking on sandy beaches, visiting art galleries, sitting in cozy cafes with a book in my hands. These thoughts made my heart beat a little faster. But today was not about big plans. It was about small moments, simple acts of kindness toward myself. I decided to take a walk in the park nearby. The sun was shining warmly, and the air smelled of blooming flowers. I felt the grass beneath my feet as I walked slowly, breathing deeply. The world was quiet except for the soft rustling of leaves and distant laughter of children playing. Found a bench under a large oak tree and sat down. I closed my eyes and listened. I listened to the sound of life around me. The birds, the wind, the gentle footsteps of people passing by. It felt peaceful, like the world was holding me in a gentle embrace. I allowed myself to feel gratitude. Gratitude for the lessons learned, for the strength found in difficult times, and for this new day. The sun moved higher, casting golden light all around. I opened my eyes and saw an elderly couple walking hand in hand. They smiled at me warmly, and I smiled back. It reminded me that love and connection are still possible, even after hardship. On my way home, I stopped at a small bakery and bought a loaf of fresh bread. The simple act of treating myself felt like a celebration. I realized that self-love is not about grand gestures, but about honoring yourself in little ways. Back at home, I prepared a light meal, carefully setting the table with a cloth and a small vase of flowers. I ate slowly, savoring every bite. It was a quiet meal, but it felt special because I was present in the moment. As evening came, I sat in my favorite chair with a soft blanket wrapped around me. The room was filled with the warm glow of a lamp and the scent of lavender from a candle. I picked up my journal and wrote down my thoughts. Writing had become a comforting ritual, a way to connect with myself and understand my feelings. I wrote about the new day, the small joys, and the hope that filled my heart. I wrote about the woman I was becoming, someone who chooses peace, kindness, and courage every day. Before going to bed, I stood by the window and looked up at the stars. The night sky was vast and full of mystery. I felt a deep sense of calm. I whispered softly to myself, I am here. I am enough. I am ready. This new day was a gift, a chance to live fully, to love deeply, and to embrace the future with an open heart. I smiled again, not because I forgot the past, but because I survived it, and that made all the difference. Gratitude is a quiet, gentle feeling. It does not shout or demand attention. It whispers softly in our hearts, reminding us of the good, even when life has been hard. Today, I want to share how saying thank you became a turning point for me, a small act with a big meaning. After everything I had been through, it was not easy to feel grateful. There were many days filled with pain, loneliness, and doubt. But slowly, I learned that gratitude is a choice. It is a way to see light in the darkness. I started by thanking myself. Yes, myself. I thanked my heart for being brave enough to keep loving, even after betrayal. I thanked my mind for holding on to hope when things seemed impossible. I thanked my body for carrying me through difficult days. Saying thank you to myself was strange at first. It felt like I was talking to a stranger, but with time, it became a comforting conversation, a reminder that I mattered. Then, I began to say thank you to the people around me. I thanked the friend who listened without judgment. I thanked the neighbor who smiled warmly when I felt invisible. I thanked the stranger who showed kindness in a small, unexpected way. These simple acts of gratitude connected me to the world in a new way. They helped me see that kindness exists everywhere, even in the smallest moments. One day, I decided to write a letter to my daughter. Our relationship had been strained for years. There was pain and silence between us, but I wanted to reach out with an open heart. In my letter, I wrote, "Thank you for the times you loved me, even when we did not understand each other. Thank you for being part of my life. I hope we can find a way to heal together." I sent the letter without expecting a reply. It was not about changing her or fixing things right away. It was about expressing my feelings honestly and with love. Few days later, I received a phone call. It was her voice, soft but sincere. She said she had read my letter and that it made her think. We talked slowly, carefully, like two people crossing a fragile bridge. It was a beginning. Saying thank you opened a door I thought was closed forever. I also thanked the moments of pain. This may sound strange, but pain taught me many lessons. It showed me my strength. It helped me understand what I truly wanted in life. I said thank you to the tears I had shed, for they were a way to heal. I said thank you to the silence I had felt, for it gave me time to think. Gratitude became a daily practice. Each morning, I wrote down 3 things I was thankful for. Sometimes they were small things: a warm cup of coffee, a sunny day, a kind word. At other times, they were deeper: a new friend, a moment of peace, a step forward in healing. This simple habit changed how I saw the world. It helped me focus on what I had, not what I lacked. One evening, I invited a few friends over for tea. We sat around the table, sharing stories and laughter. I looked at their faces, the wrinkles, the smiles, the eyes full of life, and felt grateful for their presence. Before we said goodbye, I told them, "Thank you for being here, for listening, and for your friendship. You have helped me more than you know." Their smiles warmed my heart. In that moment, I felt a deep connection, a reminder that we are never truly alone. Saying thank you also meant forgiving others quietly, even when they did not say sorry. I learned that gratitude and forgiveness often go hand in hand. When we thank life for its lessons, we begin to release anger and hurt. We find peace. One morning, I stood by my garden and looked at the flowers blooming. They reminded me that growth is possible, even after harsh winters. I whispered softly, "Thank you for the chance to grow." As I said those words, I felt my heart open a little more. Gratitude gave me a new lens to see my story, not as a tale of loss and pain, but as a journey of resilience and love. I realized that every person who crossed my path, whether for a moment or a lifetime, had taught me something valuable, and for that, I was truly thankful. So, to you, listening to my story, I say thank you. Thank you for sharing this moment with me. Thank you for being open to my words and feelings. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your day. If you feel ready, try saying thank you to yourself today. Thank yourself for being here, for trying, for growing. Thank the small moments that bring light to your life. It is a simple act, but it can change everything. Gratitude is the beginning of healing. It is a seed that grows into hope, kindness, and peace. And with each day, we can choose to water that seed. Because when we say thank you, we open our hearts to the beauty of life. Forgiveness is not an easy word to say, especially when it is directed at yourself. For many years, I carried heavy burdens, guilt, regret, and self-blame. These feelings wrapped around my heart like thick chains, making it hard to breathe or move forward. But slowly, I began to understand that forgiveness was the key to freeing myself. I had made mistakes. Like everyone, I had moments when I acted without thinking, when I said things I did not mean, or when I chose fear instead of courage. At times I blamed myself for the way things turned out with my family. I thought if I had done something differently, perhaps the pain would not be so deep. For a long time, I held on to those thoughts tightly, believing that punishment was the price for my errors. But one quiet morning, as the sun filtered softly through my curtains, I looked at my reflection in the mirror and asked myself a question. Do I deserve to carry this weight forever? The answer was no. I realized that forgiving myself was not about forgetting what happened. It was not about pretending the pain was not real. It was about choosing to let go of the harsh judgment I held inside. It was about loving myself enough. To heal, I began with small steps. Each day I took a moment to look in the mirror and say, I forgive you. At first, my voice shook, and the words felt strange and heavy, but I repeated them anyway. I forgive you. It was like planting seeds of kindness in a garden that had long been neglected. Sometimes memories would rush back, moments I wished I could change. I reminded myself gently that I had done the best I could with what I knew at the time. No one is perfect, and no one is meant to carry the weight of the world alone. I thought about the times I had judged others harshly, and how that had hurt both them and me. If I could find compassion for them, I could surely find it for myself. One afternoon, I sat by the window with my journal and wrote a letter, not to anyone else, but to myself. I wrote about my regrets, my pain, and my hopes for healing. I am sorry for the times I hurt myself with my own words. I am sorry for the moments I did not see my own worth. I am learning to forgive you, to love you, and to be patient with you. Writing this letter was like opening a door I had kept locked for years. It felt scary and freeing all at once. Forgiving myself also meant accepting that some things were beyond my control. I could not change the past, nor could I make everyone understand me. What I could do was choose peace for my own heart. There were days when forgiveness felt impossible, when the old pain returned, fierce and sharp. On those days, I reminded myself that forgiveness is a journey, not a destination. It was okay to struggle. It was okay to take time. I began to notice small changes in how I felt. The chains around my heart loosened bit by bit. I could breathe more deeply. I could smile without feeling guilty. I started to love myself not because I was perfect, but because I was human. Forgiveness brought a quiet strength that no pain could break. It gave me the courage to face the future without fear. One evening, I stood outside and watched the stars appear in the sky. They shone brightly, not because they were flawless, but because they accepted their place in the vast universe. I whispered softly, "I forgive you." And in that moment, I felt a wave of peace wash over me. I want to tell you, whoever is listening, that forgiveness is a gift you can give yourself. It does not erase your story, but it can change how you live it. You are allowed to forgive yourself. You are allowed to be kind to yourself. If you carry guilt or regret, try saying these words slowly. I forgive myself. I am enough. It is not easy. It may take time, but with each step, you will find freedom. I promise you, it is worth it. Because forgiveness is not weakness. It is the greatest act of courage. It is the beginning of true healing. It is how we open our hearts to love again. Freedom is a feeling I never thought I would know again. For so many years, I felt trapped by expectations, by pain, by the heavy chains of family struggles and my own doubts. But now, I stand in a place I could only dream of before. I am free. Not just in the usual sense of being able to do what I want, but free deep inside my soul. I remember the moment it began to sink in. It was a quiet morning, and I was walking barefoot on the soft grass in my garden. The cool earth felt alive beneath my feet. The sun was gentle, warming my face, and the breeze whispered through the leaves like a soft song. I closed my eyes and took a long, slow breath. For the first time in a long time, I felt no weight pressing down on my chest. No guilt. No anger. No fear, just peace. I realized then that freedom is not about running away from problems. It is about facing them with courage, and then letting go of what no longer serves us. I am free from the chains of past mistakes. I no longer carry the heavy burden of guilt that once crushed my spirit. I am free from the need to seek approval from those who never truly saw me. I am free from the voices that told me I was not enough. This freedom feels like a soft wind inside me, quiet, but strong. It is a feeling that lets me breathe deeply and live fully. I want to share how I found this freedom, in hopes that it may help you find your own. First, I had to stop trying to control everything. I learned that some things are beyond my reach. No matter how much I wanted to fix broken relationships or change the past, some things were out of my hands. Acceptance was hard, but it was the first step toward freedom. Then, I let go of fear. Fear had kept me small for so long. Fear of rejection, fear of loneliness, fear of failing. I learned to face those fears one by one, gently but firmly. Every time I stood up to fear, I felt a little lighter. I began to live in the present moment. Instead of carrying the past or worrying about the future, I focused on what was here, right now. I found joy in simple things: the warmth of the sun, the taste of fresh fruit, the sound of birds singing. I also started to care for myself in new ways. I took walks, read books, and allowed myself to rest without guilt. I realized that self-care is not selfish. It is necessary. Freedom also came through forgiveness. I forgave others who hurt me, And more importantly, I forgave myself. That act opened a door to peace that I thought was locked forever. One evening, I danced alone in my living room. I put on music that made my heart feel light, and I moved without thinking or worrying. I felt free to be myself, free to express my feelings, free to enjoy life. That dance was a celebration, a small ceremony of my freedom. Freedom is not always loud or dramatic. Often it is quiet and subtle. It is the calm in the storm, the light in the darkness. Since finding this freedom, I see the world differently. I am kinder to myself and to others. I do not need to prove anything to anyone anymore. I am enough, just as I am. If you are feeling trapped, I want you to know that freedom is possible. It may take time and courage, but it is waiting for you. Try to find moments to connect with yourself each day. Breathe deeply. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice the small joys around you. Say to yourself, I am free. Imagine the weight lifting off your shoulders. Imagine walking through life with a light heart. Freedom is a gift you can give yourself. It starts with a choice to release the past, to forgive, and to embrace the present. When I finally allowed myself to feel free, I discovered a new strength inside, a strength that no one can take away. I want you to feel that strength too. You deserve to be free in every part of your life. Free to love, free to dream, free to be exactly who you are. So, if you are listening now, take a deep breath with me. Feel your body, your heart, your mind. Know that freedom is not just a word. It is a feeling, a way of living, and it is yours to claim. For a long time, I wandered through life feeling unsure of myself. I tried to fit into the roles others expected of me, mother, daughter, neighbor. But often, I felt invisible, lost in the background of other people's stories. The woman I saw in the mirror was a stranger sometimes, someone I did not fully understand. But now, after all the pain, growth, and healing, I finally know who I am. This realization did not come suddenly like a flash of lightning. It grew slowly, like a small flame that refused to be extinguished. Each experience, each challenge, each moment of reflection added fuel to that flame, and now it burned steadily and bright. I am a woman who has faced betrayal and found strength. I am someone who was once broken but chose to heal. I am a person who learned that my worth is not measured by others' approval, but by the love I give myself. I am no longer afraid to be seen. I am no longer afraid to speak my truth, even if it is difficult or uncomfortable. I know I am resilient because I have survived storms that could have destroyed me. I know I am capable because I have taken steps forward when every part of me wanted to stay still. I know I am worthy of love, not just from others, but from myself. Knowing who I am means embracing my past, with all its mistakes and joys. It means accepting the parts of me that are strong and the parts that are still fragile. I used to believe that to be strong, I had to hide my weaknesses. I thought admitting pain or doubt made me less worthy. Now, I understand that true strength is showing up, even when you feel broken. I have learned to listen to my inner voice. It is quieter than the noise of the world, but it is honest and kind. When I follow that voice, I feel centered and at peace. Sometimes I still feel doubt. Sometimes old fears try to sneak back in. But I no longer let them control me. I acknowledge them, thank them for their warning, and then choose to move forward. Knowing who I am also means understanding my values. I value kindness, honesty, and courage. I value connection and forgiveness. These values guide my decisions and help me create a life that feels true to me. I see now that my identity is not tied to my family's approval or their opinions. It is my own. I am the author of my story. This understanding has given me freedom. Freedom from trying to please everyone. Freedom from the need to explain myself. Freedom from the fear of being alone. I stand tall now, even if I am by myself, because I know I am enough. There is a quiet confidence in knowing who you are. It is not loud or boastful. It is steady and calm, like the roots of a strong tree holding firm in the wind. I have learned to celebrate my uniqueness, the things that make me different, the experiences that shaped me, the dreams that still live inside me. Knowing who I am is also about hope. Hope for a future where I can continue to grow, to love, and to live fully. I want to encourage anyone listening to take time to explore their own identity. It is a journey worth taking. It requires patience and kindness to yourself. Ask yourself, who am I beyond the roles I play? What do I believe in? What makes me feel alive? These questions may not have quick answers. They may change over time. But every step you take in discovering yourself is a victory. I am grateful for the woman I have become. I cherish the lessons I have learned. I welcome the person I am still becoming. If you are on this path too, know that you are not alone. We are walking together, finding our way in a world that often tries to tell us who we should be. But the truth is, we are free to be ourselves. And when you know who you are, nothing can shake your foundation. You can face the world with an open heart and a clear mind. You can love deeply and live boldly. You can stand in your truth and shine your light. So, today I say to you and to myself, I know who I am enough, I am whole, I am free. As I reach the end of this story, I want to speak directly to you, the one who has listened, who has stayed through the ups and downs, the quiet moments, and the storms. I want to share my message with you from the heart. Life is not easy. Family can bring us joy, but it can also bring pain. Trust can be broken. Dreams can be delayed or changed. But through it all, we have a choice. We can let the difficulties define us, or we can choose to rise above them. I want you to know that no matter what you have faced, you are not alone. The feelings of hurt, loneliness, confusion, and even anger are part of the human experience. It is okay to feel them. It is okay to cry and to feel lost. But it is also possible to heal. It is possible to find strength inside you that you never knew you had. You can grow from pain. You can become someone new, someone stronger, kinder, and wiser. This story is not just mine. It is the story of anyone who has ever felt left out, ignored, or underestimated. It is the story of those who have been betrayed by the people they loved, but still found a way to forgive and move forward. My message to you is this: you have power. You have worth. You have a voice that matters. Do not let anyone make you feel small or invisible. Do not accept being treated as less than you deserve. You have the right to say no. You have the right to protect your heart. You have the right to choose yourself. Choosing yourself may feel selfish to some, but it is not. It is the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and for those around you. When you care for yourself, you have more love to give. I learned that love is not just about giving. It is also about boundaries. It is about respect. Respect for yourself and for others. You do not have to stay in a place where you are not valued. You do not have to accept pain that does not lead to growth. You deserve happiness. You deserve peace. You deserve freedom. If you are struggling with family, with trust, or with your own self-worth, take small steps every day to heal. Reach out to a friend, write in a journal, take a walk in nature. Find moments that bring you calm and joy. Remember that healing is not a straight path. There will be days when you feel strong and days when you feel weak. Both are okay. Be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself. You are more resilient than you realize. You are capable of amazing things. Do not rush your journey. It is your story, and it deserves to be told in your time. If I could give you one piece of advice, it would be this: trust yourself. Listen to your heart, even when it is scared or uncertain. Believe that you can create a life filled with love, respect, and happiness. You are the author of your life. You have the pen in your hand. Write your story with courage. Write your story with hope. Write your story with love. Thank you for walking this path with me. Thank you for opening your heart to my story. I hope it has touched you, helped you, or inspired you in some way. Remember, you are not alone. We are all connected by the human experience, by love, loss, hope, and the desire to be seen. Carry this message with you. You are enough, you are worthy, you are free, and you are loved.